So welcome to Pop Culture Roulette for all your pop culture needs. We're America's podcast. Okay, today's going to be a little bit of a different episode. I'm joined by Ryan. I guess for lack of a better description, my cousin.
Yes. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
I mean, without getting too detailed into the who's, where, and how far down the list, because I think it's like technically cousin once removed or twice
Oh,
removed,
it's
but
yeah. I'm not even. I'm
I
third,
had to. I
third
just
cousin,
talked
fourth
to.
cousin.
I just talked to my mom, and she told me, but I was like, I'm just gonna say cousin. It's just
It's
easier. So we're joined by
relative. This
we're
is relative.
relative. So we're joined by Rion Duncan, um, who has recently published a book, um, and he has a bit of a circuitous route to get to that book. So we're going to talk about that for a little bit, because I am interested in the book, and unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to read it yet. One
That's
of the
okay. That's
I
okay.
will get to it
Maybe
at some
this can
point, but
spark. Maybe yeah. Maybe this can spark your interest to actually get to the reading process. Maybe.
I'm interested in the book, and I'd like to hear about it. But what I didn't know is that you started your own publishing company.
Yes. Yes. So that was the goal all along. So I mean, the book started. Real actually realistically working on the book itself, where I was putting chapters together, started about 12, 13 years ago. But in a sense, it's a project that I've been working on, I think, since I was in probably middle school or junior high at best, where I was like writing like character information, like coming up with like total like background outline stuff that had no context. It was just like, here's a cool world where this person exists and this is going on. But even from the moment I first started writing the chapters, the first few words of the first few chapters of the book, publishing it myself and specifically creating my own publishing company was always the goal. I went to a number of like writing conferences and stuff, and actually worked alongside some agents, like met agents, talked with them, learned the process of what it is to, to submit a query, pitch a book to an agent, and the process that goes in with the agent going to an editor, getting editor to take hold of it, getting to the actual publishing company, like all those steps, trying to learn about the process of the publishing companies, knowing that I never was actually going to submit it. I've not this book that is out now. It's not something that like it got rejected so many times and I tried to do it. And I was like, it's hell if I'll do it on my own.
Okay.
I didn't submit a single one. I mean, the goal was always to build my own publishing company, with the eventual goal, to grow that company into something much more, and to ideally be, I don't know what that actually looks like yet, but something that can kind of bridge the gap between traditional publishing and self-publishing, to grow it to the point, something that has a platform that can actually, reach out and expand out to a large scale. Because if you look at, of course, your big four, big five publishers, any book that they have, if Penguin Random House publishes any book, it's in every bookstore in existence automatically, because it's Penguin Random House. So to be able to eventually grow a company to have that platform where if you do a book, it can be picked up. It will be picked up by any bookstore, but then still have the small independent and self-publishing route of, we're going to consider open queries. Like I don't want to use the agent system of, you've got to go find an agent who can then come find an editor who find us, like the 6 degrees of separation between the writer trying to come up with this and finally getting to the publishing company. So that was always the goal, was to eventually grow to that point and continue growing. And ideally, I would love for it to reach beyond that and to become an entire entertainment company that can create things more directly entwined with the creators in mind, with the people who are writing these stories. I think for me, all of any medium starts with a writer, whether it's video games, music, movies, books, of course, obviously, like it all starts with someone having an idea, a story, a narrative that they want to tell. So I want to very much figure out some way to grow to a point that we can give more writers, that people that are coming up with these stories and creating these worlds, the opportunity to share that with the world and not have to go through, I mean, the absolute arduous gauntlet that is trying to get a work created, whether it's music, whether it's film, anything. I mean, you've got artists that, thankfully, thanks to the internet now, like, musicians can actually upload stuff to SoundCloud and catch a break that way. But you look at those, I mean, you've got screenplays that'll sit on a desk for a decade, 2 decades, never about to becoming a film. Like the perfect Squid Game that is now blown up and it's become the biggest thing on planet Earth. The writer for that originally wrote in like 2007, 2009, like got declined from everything. No one wanted to pick it up, and it's set for over a decade with the guy just like still trying, still pitching. I read an anecdote recently. I mean, I think he like had to like sell his laptop at some point to just like to have money to be able to, pay for bills and everything. And then finally it gets picked up and it's like, look at this, Squid Game is amazing. So like something to try and make that less of a like an impossible battle that it is. I mean, you've got some people that, of course, create works and they never see the light of day. They never get published or they never get turned into a film. They just sit. And some of them don't need to. I realize, like some of them may suck. Sometimes you just don't have a good idea. I realize there's that too.
Well,
it's not.
And given how many content providers there are nowadays, it's amazing to see how hard it still is to get your product out there. I mean, I guess there's still the old way of doing it with, like you said, going through the agent. I've never had to do that because I've never come up with an idea worth sitting down and trying to figure that out. But
I'm not sure if I've come up with an idea worth sitting down and trying to figure out yet either, but maybe.
But yeah, so all right, well that's fascinating. So I mean, ultimately the goal was to start the publishing company, and you just happened to come up with a book that came along with it.
Yes. So that could kind of be ideally the spearhead first step on the journey for that.
So, I mean, I've seen the cover of the book. How exactly, I think I know how you pronounce it, but what is the correct pronunciation?
It is Idonia.
Idonia, okay.
Idonia, which is originally comes from, it's a play on Eden, was where it originally got its name from, the Garden of Eden that humanity was kicked out of according to the Christian faith. But it was a play on that. It was nothing more than just taking that and creating a word from it. So Idonia grew from the Garden of Eden, a simple, small place in existence as like a pocket reality, and then grew over time to become a city, to become a world, to become a cosmos-spanning civilization.
Yeah, because I saw that you said you had planned on doing like 6 to 8 of these books, or
yes, okay. 6 to 8 from the way that it's currently, and more than that, realistically, it's probably looking closer to 8 from where things are trending. But also, probably every piece of fiction that I write for the entirety of my life will be in some way tied back to this. That's not a dead set thing, but at least where I sit now, this is my Middle Earth. It's like this world is a world that I just want to live in and tell more stories in and expand it indefinitely.
Kind of like Stephen King's Castle Rock, where everything at some point kind of interconnects.
Yeah, there's other things I would like to write that I have that are not in the like sci-fi, like heavy sci-fi fantasy genres the way that this one is. But I still feel like there will always be just some overlap in some way.
Okay. So I mean, we'll circle back to it again just to give you, but where, like, since you're not a traditional publisher, where would one find this book? I mean,
Amazon. Yeah, I was gonna say that's the upside of, so that is a fortunate sign. You talk about the changes in the publishing industry and the way that it's functioned. It's much easier to self-publish or even do it, which realistically, what I did is self-publish. I
Okay.
created a publishing company. I have an LLC. There is, we have a website, we have trademarks, we own all of that stuff, but it's just me at the end of the day, largely,
Okay.
and the help of some very essential key individuals who have helped me and assisted me at various points, helping me create the fonts, helping me do some of the design work, some of the website work. But the book wise, I mean, it's self-published. I went out and found the platforms with which to do all of the stuff and research all the channels, but there's a ton of methods. So like direct publishing right now, it is direct published digitally through Amazon Kindle. So the only ebook version that is currently available is Kindle, because I'm using, they have a program where if you keep it exclusive to them, you get some perks for the early on. So I started there with that as a platform. That will be transitioning probably at the first of the year. First of the new year, so 2022 at this point now, and it will be available on all ebook platforms. But that's just something that I've been keeping that to the side, keeping it exclusive with them for the time being, to get in some perks with Amazon, and then. But you can also purchase the physical version if you're not an ebook person and you don't want to go Kindle route. If you don't like Kindle, the physical version, the hardback, is available through Amazon as well as Barnes and Noble on their website. Physical stores, it's still only in local stores here in my state. I'm working with that as I go, is reaching out to individual independent bookstores to get that, but you can order it on, like I said, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I think Books A Million's website has it on their website, and then there's a number of others. Because the way it is, so I work with a distributor and printer called Ingram Spark. So it's another thing. They have, and they're just one of a number of different ones, but they're a printing company that also functions as a distributor, so they can do print on demand. So like they have the entire manuscript set up and formatted through them. The books don't get made until someone, either an individual ordering them online or a bookstore order some. Then they get made, printed, bound, and shipped out to that person or that bookstore.
Okay, so that's nice. I mean, I guess that's the advantage of today's modern world, is that like,
yes,
you don't have to print a certain run to just get the book even.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't have to do a 10,000 book run hoping and praying to God that it's gonna sell a single copy. Okay. You can do that print on demand. The downside for that, being candid, just to, about the downside is, the printing cost is much higher when you're doing it, as a one-off. If I were to order, say, hey, I want to order a 10,000 book run, and this is how it works for traditional publishers, use a Penguin Random House or a Little Brown or any of those like that. They'll do a first book run. It's like, all right, we're going to do, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 preprints of this. And then it's like each book is a couple of dollars because they've ordered so many that printing companies are like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. Well, we'll charge you $3 a book to print that, or whatever the cost may be. And so then they make a ton of money on each individual book that goes out. For myself, any self-publishers, independent publishers that are doing small scale print on demand, the print cost shifts dramatically. And it isn't still like, it's not a crazy money-making thing by any means. But it's kind of one of those things, is you have the access and the ability to do it. So while it may not be nearly as like financially productive as if a traditional publisher were to do it, the access is there. Like you have access to a market that realistically 10, 15 years ago, you just did not have access to. Especially if you look at like, even what you're able to do with ebooks now, with digital books, Kindle, Barnes and Noble has a publishing platform through them as well. It's like 15 years ago, that just wasn't even an option. You physically could not do that.
Oh, that's really good. All right. So, why don't you give me just a quick description of the book, just so we know where you're standing? Because I think you would probably do a much better job than I would, especially since you wrote it and I haven't read it.
That's true. I don't know that I always struggle to describe my own work. So the nature of the story starts out, it's an urban fantasy like setting. Starts out in real world America. I actually set the book in its final draft format. I set it in the state of Arkansas, where I'm originally from and where I live now. It's moved locations a number of times, but it's a very, I think, a realistic, just simple human tale of individuals who are going off to college. They're actually, in this case, there's three friends, Aaron, Allie, and Rachel, who are going to get their graduate degrees and moving away from home for the first time. So this is their first journey out of the home and into the bigger world beyond, even if it is still much smaller than as big as the world can get. But it's the tale of them, and they come in contact as soon as they move to their new city away from home. They come in contact with a family with some very, very different beliefs and a different outlook on life. That's also very enigmatic in a sense that they're ostentatious to a high degree and unapologetically so, but also still very like humble. I don't know if humble is the right word, but very nonchalant about it. Like they have absolutely opulent wealth and influence and connections, but don't really flaunt it and kind of seem to like exist in the shadows in a sense that they don't really like that. As I mean, you have to just see as you read the book. I mean, like it comes to find out. I mean, like they own, you know, like half the town basically, but nobody knows who they are. Like you can't find information on them anywhere. So it's a really strange event. It's like this very seem to be nice and you know, pleasant family that's very well to do, but completely disconnected from anything going on in the reality. And then you come to figure out that they believe in a much different outlook on life, which is that our world was actually created in the process that, you know, we dub as the Big Bang, or if you choose to go with various creation theories in different religions, you know, whatever it is, the story that you tell, our world was created actually as a cast off of a much larger world, and is part of a much larger cosmos beyond our own. And so it seeks to tie in a number of really the first book as it is, Idonia, creation, is all of the terms that humans have come up with for creation. Okay. Whether it's Christianity, you know, my own personal faith, or it's any Eastern philosophies, whether you look at, you know, you look back as far as Greek mythology, and you look as far into the future, you know, modern scientific theories with the Big Bang, like humans are constantly trying to answer the question, where do we come from? What are we? Creation. Where, like, what is our creation origin story? And so it starts with that, and it tells this family's different view that we were actually created. The events that created our universe, the entire known universe as it is, were a much larger scale society that was affected and cast off from that, and what that means to the world. And that's the general backdrop setting. From there, the story grows out very much. The first book is set entirely in our world with these individuals, but as time goes on, it becomes very clear that I don't know if you're able to hear.
Well, I'm kind of dealing with some of it myself. Yes, because I think I hear your dog, but my dog. I mean, you saw the one.
Yeah, I saw the one come in. I'm sorry. Like, I have no idea what she's wanting or what is going on. And she's never like this. And she's just over here whining with her. And it's like, I don't know what you want me to do.
Well, the one dog who just turned 1 loves to torture the cat, and the cat's too dumb to realize that she can just run away. So, yeah. So, okay. But they're not as loud as they normally are, so we'll
make it work.
Yeah, and this will give Jeremy some work to edit, or he'll just or he'll just leave it in to make me look stupid.
That's what, like, I did every episode, almost every episode, not every episode, but of the episodes I've listened of you guys, like I always hear like a dog bark at some point. There was one where it was like, all right, and that's the call to sign off and to end it for the night.
Yeah, well, because I've got 2 dogs and 2 cats. You're never going to hear the 2 rabbits, so I never bring them up. But and then Justin has a dog and kind of a daughter. I mean, like his current girlfriend, or like not current. I mean, she's been there for 5 years. Came with a daughter, so he's kind of, you know, sort of de facto become the father. But you know, so sometimes that happens. but I know his girlfriend sits in the other side of the room because every so often she'll say something about what he just said, but she can't. He wears headphones, so she can't hear what we said. She just
Yes, you can
hears
only
what.
hear what he says.
Yeah.
That's currently Tiff was actually sitting in the same room, like just over there, the entire like first half of everything that we were talking. She wasn't saying anything. I'm sure she was just laughing at the one-sided conversation because she's only hearing what I'm saying.
Yeah. So because Jess is never in the room, Jess is always pretty much in bed or not here.
Oh,
So
nice. Well, Tiff is super chill and very quiet. So she didn't have any which I told her, I was like, if you say something, I won't hear you. So it's like if you're talking to me, I'm not gonna be
yeah.
able to respond really.
Well,
But no,
Jess has to
she's
go to work.
super cool.
Jess gets up at 3:30 to go to work,
Ooh,
so she
dang.
goes to bed earlier than I do. So it gives me a chance to do stuff like this. All right. So anyway,
Understandably so.
we'll all right. So back to so
Wheeling it back around.
what
Yeah.
exactly or not exactly, but what feeds you? Like what content do you consume that like inspires you?
I'm so glad that you asked that because there's a ton. And I think it's something that for me, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm unique by any stretch of the means, but I feel like from what I've seen from other authors, and particularly like people that I've read and people that much different. And I read, I play a lot of video games, I watch a lot of film. So any gripping storytelling medium, I listen to podcasts content. I ask people that like do like the old school style, radio shows that they've brought them back into podcast format and things like that. So like really like I consume all kinds of stuff. And I think that's one of the things that I by no means read as much as probably most your average author. You look at like Stephen King, that I forget how much, like it's crazy to hear him talk about like how many books he reads in a given year. And it's like I can never read that. Like I do not read that much. And I still so all kinds of stuff. Like I do a lot of audiobooks. I drive a lot for work. So audiobooks has become over the past like 6 or 7 years have become like a cornerstone of it. But I watch shows. So, I mean, any good, well done narrative, I'm very interested. So I mean, whether it's playing a Mass Effect or the Witcher series, or which I don't know. I guess Witcher is a cheat because it's a book and a game series, and also now a show. I heard you guys talking about that on one of the episodes, and like I was trying to like talk into the episode. I was like, I know I could explain this. I know this story. It's like you guys are trying. Was it a book first, or I was like, it was a Polish book that eventually came stateside when the game came stateside, but the game doesn't cover everything that the book series covers. And I was just like, I could answer this question.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes our lack of knowledge is astounding. But at the
But
other
then your
side,
knowledge is amazing. You guys have so much information. I'm like, oh my gosh, how did you
well,
know that?
a lot of it is that at 43, I've been around for a while.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, but like I remember, like even as far back as when I used to when I lived in Memphis, when I was closer to you guys,
Hmm.
when I watched movies, like I just retain information in a way that like I don't see other people retaining that information.
I'm there with you. So I'm years behind. I'm a decade behind you, but my brain functions similarly. People joke. I'm sure you get this constantly. I'm the person with all the useless trivia.
Yep.
Which is kind of like David is our both of our relatives. Which I don't know what day. He's my uncle. I don't know what he is
So
to you in
he's
context.
my actual cousin.
Yeah, he's your like direct,
Yeah.
direct cousin. It's like him, like he just has like random factoids that it's like why does this have any context,
So
any relation?
clearly that's where the family resemblance is. Like
Yeah, it's a genetic. Yeah,
that's where the genetic is.
Yeah,
I
Mark was
think
the same way. Mark
yeah.
had all kinds of information where it's like, where do you like you
See,
just store this and stuff.
I mean, obviously, I think I've spent more time with David. I remember Mark, but not as well. But I do remember the couple times we would go out and visit. Mark was the one who was definitely into like when I had my Transformers, he knew what all that stuff was.
Yes.
Where your grandfather, my uncle, would be like, "What are these nerd things?"
Yes, yeah, absolutely. That was a Mark would have fit in perfectly with this conversation, all of these
Yeah,
things. So much of the stuff when I've listened to the podcast, I've heard stuff and I'm like, oh man, I could totally, like, that's something that Mark would have been all over.
yeah,
uh, but yeah, like you guys, and it's just like the crazy information. I was listening to one of your podcasts. You guys were talking about I think you had brought it up. Well, you're kind of like the news aggregate
yeah.
of the system. And you brought up the some South American vice president who had owned a soccer team, who had made
Yeah,
himself a
yeah.
player on the soccer team, and you were talking about, like, does he play? And immediately I thought of I don't know if you saw it. There's the Sacha Baron Cohen movie, The Dictator. I haven't even seen the movie. I don't
I've not
know.
seen it. I heard of it, but I
Yeah,
never saw
but
it.
there's a scene from it where he's running, like, they have like a track competition and he's running like 100-meter race and he's running in it and he takes off running first, but he has the gun to signal the start of the race. So he starts running and then he shoots the gun to signal the start. And then, like, as someone starts to catch up with him, he like shoots them and turns back on, like, somebody else's cue. And he shoots them and he's just like still running, like winning the race. And then eventually just like waves the finish line and like they bring the ribbon up closer to him so that he can finish and he wins the race. And it was like that whole, you guys are saying that, I just wanted to chime in. I was like, oh man, this is that Sacha Baron Cohen movie. It's like,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
you're the essentially the, like, small partial ruler of a small country in South America who owns stuff and also does drug trafficking. So you're probably corrupt as all get out. And
yeah.
then it's just like, yeah, you play for the team when they're there at the home games, and if anyone does anything wrong, it's just like, I'll shoot you.
Probably,
No.
yeah.
Who's gonna say anything? We had to cut this guy from the team. Don't ask where he is. He's no longer around. He's left the country. He doesn't belong here anymore.
Yeah, yeah, that was a fact. Yeah, because I will aggregate all the the stories or anything that I feel like talking about. I mean, they're more than welcome to bring anything, but I mean, I've made the joke before, and it's not true anymore. But at the beginning, that Justin didn't bring anything to the table; he was just there.
Oh, and then there was the I listened to the Treehouse of Horror episodes where he had watched every
Right,
Treehouse of
which is
Horror.
why it's not true anymore, and I've had to apologize to him multiple times because in this new version of the podcast, I could say that there have been times where he's done more work than I have.
Yeah. That was so funny. It was like I watched every episode and like made an entire list. I was like, oh my God, this is so much
Well,
work.
when he really started, it was the Adam Sandler bracket.
I haven't listened to that one
Oh,
yet. I need to go check
it's
that.
earlier in the run, and that's when that's it wasn't the first bracket that we did, but it was like the first one where we're like, oh, this is fun. Like once we figured out how to make, because he was the one who broke the code on how to make the bracket and make it work. Like
To
he
just
took
use the IMDb score and
he took the IMDb score and like two other scores and then just added them all together.
just do an aggregate. Nice.
So
Nice.
like they all had a number attached to them. So he could put them on the bracket in a not just be like, well, I like this one better. I like this one better. Like it had a number.
Yeah,
Like
you had a smooth seating there, like
yeah,
an actual natural seating, and then you can go from
right.
there.
So yeah, that's I think that's why this podcast has become a lot more obsessed with brackets recently because it's been a lot of fun making them. And then just kind of we have discovered we did an episode where we let the other guy who does Media Pod Smash because Jeremy has Media Pod Smash and Pop Culture Roulette.
Yes.
We let him do an episode of Pop Culture Roulette. So there was four of us, and we did a Girl Scout bracket, a Girl Scout cookie bracket.
Girl Scout cookie bracket.
Yeah,
Okay. I
yeah.
like it. I like
Um,
it.
but four people doing the bracket, there was a lot of like ties where we had to like convince somebody to change a
Yeah,
vote.
you
So
need an uneven number.
we either needed to add a fifth or drop the fourth, so just keep it
Well,
at the three.
if
So
you ever need a fifth again, if you ever find that you need a fifth, let me know. I'll gladly
absolutely.
be. There's a
So
reason why the Supreme Court only has 9 judges. Like, you got to have a tiebreaker,
yeah.
otherwise you're stuck at stalemate.
My next question, I believe I know the answer to this based off of the artwork hanging on the wall behind you. I was gonna say Marvel or DC and then defend your choice, but so I'm guessing you're DC.
So, well, actually, man, I'm tough. I'm a little bit more towards the middle. These are actually my wife's that you're seeing in the
Ah,
background. She is definitely much more DC. I think for a lot of the stuff I do, I like a lot of DC. And see, this is where it's tough. In comic book form, it's a much different discussion, of course, than in
absolutely.
film adaptations. But I don't know. There's a lot of the dark and grittiness that is in prevalent with a lot of the things in the DC universe are really really enjoyable. But I also think it's really unfair because it's like, when I say DC, like, I like DC and I do like a variety of DC. What I really love is Gotham. Like,
Yep.
everything that's tied to Gotham, just, not just Batman. Like, I'm a huge Red Hood fan. I really, really enjoy from the original, format, going off of the Death in the Family arc, and then coming back to the original rebirth of Jason Todd as Red Hood. But even then, the newer stuff that they've done, like, I love that. The Batwoman series that they've done within it, but just like, and of course, everything Batman has done over the years, like, is arguably some of the best literary works. So that's like, if the bias is there, I think that those pull so much heavy. Because then on the flip side, like, I personally hate Superman. I think Superman is just like, I
My
used to really enjoy it, but it's like, you're the Boy Scout. Like, you're
my
just
my argument with Superman is that in the hands of a good writer, he can be
yes,
amazing. But he
yes,
in a writer that is either just average or not good, he's so boring because he's the
so
ultimate,
boring.
there's nothing that can beat him. But there
Well,
have
yeah,
been
there's
some.
nothing that can beat you. You're infinitely powerful, and then what you choose to do with that infinite power, when not constructed well, it is just like, oh my gosh, like,
But
this is
when
dull.
when my friend Craig owned the comic book store, I tended to buy more Marvel than DC. I just
Mhm.
found Marvel vastly more interesting and entertaining. But I still bought pretty much all the Batman stuff. It was like whatever
Yeah,
Batman's doing,
I mean,
and then
anything
Marvel.
in, yeah, anything in the Batman world, I'm interested. So Marvel is a little bit different for me. So, like, I really really enjoy a lot of the stuff within the X-Men side of the Marvel universe. That in particular has some depth to it that I really really enjoy. And then there's a number. I don't know. Marvel's tricky because they've had so many good authors that have come through, that have worked with them on stories and various ones. So, like, you've got the pieces that Jeff Loeb did with them. He did a Hawkeye piece and a Hulk piece with it, which he's also done this stuff with DC as well. But, like, those pieces are really really good. The story arc. So there's some variety there. I like a lot of Marvel's overall universe and things that are going on. I think it's a bit of a bittersweet conversation to have for me currently, because I'm currently becoming exhausted with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which, to say that to a Marvel person is just like, you just committed sacrilege and said that, like, it's so intense, but, like, it's just so much. Like, the Marvel universe, cinematic universe, has grown so big where it's like, I don't want to keep up with
I
all of this.
I do fear with them really getting into the Disney Plus stuff that
Oh
that
yes.
is that is a problem for that will be a problem, especially if they're going to really link the movies to the TV shows.
Yeah, especially
Because
with, you look
that's
at, the calendar layout currently of what they have coming, and it's just like
yeah, it's
every three
just
months a movie, and every other
I
couple of
mean,
months of a show.
I'm definitely much more of a Marvel acolyte than a DC guy, but yeah, and when they're like, we're gonna put out 4 movies, like I was like, man, I was happy when it was 1 or 2 movies
Hmm.
a year.
Yeah.
But I think that's what happened to Agents of Shield is that it just got so much that they were like, we have to go off and do our own thing. We can't continue to try to work within the movies. Like when it was just like 1 or 2 a year, it was easy, but now you're doing like 3 or 4. Like
And this is where, like, to, that's a great reflection of comics, because you look at the DC, Marvel, whatever, the verses that you're within. I have never at any point in my comic book reading been a read everything within
Right.
a universe spectrum. Like I'll have my like when for example, like when New 52 launched, I did for DC in what, 2010,
Something like that.
2011, whatever
Yeah.
it was. I did, like, I read the first volume of every of the New 52 and checked them all out. And then I got, 2 dozen of the volume twos. I probably not even that much of it. It was probably like 12 to 15 of the ones. Just like, okay, I really like these ones. These are really good. And it's like, that's the thing with comics. Like, I never read every arc that is
Right.
going on at a given time. And with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the way it's currently going is like, you have to watch all of the stuff. And it's like, that's just too much for me in a single universe that
Yeah. No.
that also never really, and this is where I struggle too, is like, I love the Marvel stuff. It's really, really good. But it also, at least from the cinematic aspect, not so much in the comics, it reaches those points, but I don't feel like the cinematic universe ever really reaches the heights of just like groundbreaking, gripping storytelling that you see in other like smaller works. You look at like a Raised by Wolves on HBO, or like Midnight Mass on Netflix, that are some like really, really unique storytellings, or even like the new Watchmen iteration on HBO. Westworld. Westworld. Yes. I don't know if you heard that. Yeah. Westworld, especially season
Yeah.
one of Westworld, where it's like, this is new. This is revolutionary. This is
Well,
something very, very different.
and
And
that's
and that
and that's where I think a lot of people get kind of torn, is that they feel like they have to have it all in one and the other. Like I
yes,
enjoy
yes.
Marvel. I enjoy Marvel, and I like watching, most of it. There's been a couple that have been whatever. But like I don't necessarily need, like, if I want to watch that, something deep or something whatever, like that's what I have those other shows for. That's what that stuff is for. If I want to just veg out on Cobra Kai for a weekend, like,
Yeah. Yes.
you know,
Yes.
like I don't need to think too heavily, for the next, couple days. That's what I'm gonna watch. But if that's where, I don't have to be one or the other. I can play in both worlds.
Which I will agree with. I think I agree that I can play in both worlds there as well, because I mean, like, I can easily like want my heavy story iterations, and then I can also watch, for me, like we've been finishing up the latest season of What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh
Um,
my God, I love finally somebody that I can talk to about that show.
I fucking love What We Do in the Shadows. I love the original with the movie with Takeshi
Yes.
Waititi in
Well,
it.
I
Um,
I hunted that movie down intentionally because of the oh the Jermaine Clement and
oh yes, yeah, you're trying to
Flight of the Concords,
Flight of
because
Concords.
I
Yes,
love Flight of the Concords. I
yeah,
heard
yeah.
about What We Do in the Shadows, so I hunted that movie down and I loved it. So when they were like, "We're gonna do a TV show," I was like, "Okay, that's weird. I don't know how you're gonna do a show off of that, but I think I love the show almost more than I love the original movie."
I've come to love the show. I mean, like,
And I have
Nando the
and I
Relentless,
have no
because
idea
I
where
never relent.
no idea where they're going with season 4, but man,
Don't spoil or anything. We're in season 3 right now. We're not finished.
oh, okay. I was gonna say, because I kept up with it because I have Hulu, so
That's
like,
what we just, yeah, we got set up on Hulu and are catching
okay.
up with. We're about halfway through
Oh, okay, all right.
season 3. So we got
Then
back
I
from
will.
Atlantic City.
Yes,
Uh,
okay, yeah, yeah. So the Atlantic City episode, that was
it
a
was
good one.
great.
I
It was
love that
great.
episode. All right, I'm not going to talk any more about it because I don't necessarily remember the exact order of how everything happens.
We'll do a comeback to this.
Okay, all right,
We'll finish here in the next little bit, and then I'll do another. We'll just do a What We Do in the Shadows recap discussion.
okay, all right. Okay, because I didn't want to do just a standard boring interview of just, this and that. I had to come up with a couple of questions that were kind of oddballs.
Oh
So
yes.
if you could wedgie anyone in history, who would it be?
Ooh. Wait, is this historical or fictional? Are we doing like real world, or are we doing fictional characters?
I originally envisioned it as real world, but you can go
Okay.
any way with it you want. I mean, it's
Okay. So if I could go fictional, I would have to do Dolores Umbridge from Harry
okay.
Potter,
Yeah, yeah. All
who
right, I
is
get that
who
one.
is one
She
of the
deserves it.
most, oh my gosh, like, and I give like phenomenal credit to both in the book, but then like props to that actress who played her in the Harry Potter film, because she did a phenomenal job with it, because
Yes,
she is just so hateable.
yes.
um yeah. Now history, like if I were to go historical, that's that's a little tougher, man, because I'm trying to think, like, is it has to be someone who is like who is pompous and so like full of, for me that would, it has to be like a bring you down to reality um type aspect. uh I might actually, this is going to be a weird one. um I'm going to go with Henry the Eighth.
Okay.
Henry the Eighth. That was he was. Let me make sure I'm getting my numbers right. Henry the Eighth is had the six wives.
Yeah, he's the one
None of were the son.
who every time his wife gave him a daughter, he'd kill him.
Yeah, but also on top of that, and seeing, this is where this is the backtrack into that. My initial thought started to be Shakespeare, because Shakespeare served. I love Shakespeare. I'm a huge Shakespeare fan, but Shakespeare was also a huge like propaganda puppet for King Henry VIII. Like if you look at the King Richard III story,
Yeah.
a lot of the information in Shakespeare's play is absolute, like there's a ton of fabrication, but it's because Henry VIII was pressuring Shakespeare to like spin this tale of how, and so a lot of his works, like Henry VIII gets that part on it. So I would have to say Henry VIII. Yeah.
Okay.
Just
All
like
right.
all of the stuff that he did in pushing the state to like change the functions, like changing the entire like Church of England to allow this stuff, all just because you're just a shit. Like just really, that was all of it at the end of the day. It's like you're a shit and you can't own up to it, and all of that. So yeah, if I hit that, Henry
All
VIII.
right. Because I was thinking I was gonna have to ban the word Hitler, but hey, you're the first one up, and you didn't go there. So
No,
maybe I won't.
Hitler definitely, like that. Obviously, like that's one that I think probably rises to the surface for people, is like an easy thing. But the problem is, I think that's the product of someone who, in a metaphysical sense, has been wedgied.
Yeah.
If we're being completely honest, like I think that's what that comes. It's like I don't think you're. I think you're missing the thing. There's like you need to unwedgie that person
Okay.
and
All right.
not create that monster.
All right. Now, as somebody who hasn't listened to the podcast for a long time, you've probably never, because it hasn't come up. I don't feel like it's come up in a while. But I have made the claim that I have never cried at a movie, at least as an adult, or as somebody who wasn't a small child. I'm sure when I was 6, there were movies that made me cry. I've been told that that makes me an unfeeling, emotionless monster. But so I ask, what movies or TV show has made you cry?
I'm the worst person to ask of that, because I am like so easily like can get into an emotional state. Like even from like I could joke and say that like I could act, in the sense that like I could almost cry on command if I just like think about the right thing from an emotional perspective. So that's that like I'll preface with that, and then I'll follow up with, I'm a dad now, and I have a little girl. She's 3 now, so definitely like anything relating to dad and daughter stuff, even just like parenting stuff, like can really quickly get me there. For example, like my a good friend of a great friend, one of our closest family friends. I joke all the time that every time we'll go over and visit them on their houseboat, and he has like a playlist that is just like the collection of all of the like sad dad daughter songs, like, you know, like every country music song and every
Okay,
song
all
of
right,
like, you know, She Loved Me First, you know, as you're like marrying the daughter off of like, and they'll just play that. And I'm like, why do you do this? Like, I just want to go sit in a corner and cry like endlessly. It's like, why? How do you listen to this nonstop? So, but that, so that's a preface there. I would say with that all in mind, if I were to think of like a single scene that was without a doubt a scene that would punch me in my gut the hardest, it is the scene in Interstellar after Matthew McConaughey and Hathaway come up from the world that had the like harsh gravitational shifts that was causing the tidal waves, where it was because they were so close to the black hole, it was actually time is moving slower within that. So for every hour, it was like something like for every hour spent on there, it was like seven years or something like that. And he gets back up, and in that little like fraction of a time, and I think it's such a beautiful, like just small little pocket of explaining parenthood. He's down on the planet. I mean, they're down there for a couple of hours and comes back up, and his little girl that he had left, who was like 12 years old, Murph at the time, is fully grown. And he's watching that video, that scene. Have you seen Interstellar?
No, unfortunately, I keep missing that movie. But yeah, I mean, I've heard enough about it to know that I should watch it.
You should. This scene particularly. I'm spoiling some spoilers for everybody out there that hasn't seen Interstellar. I apologize. But when Matthew McConaughey comes up from that, and there is essentially a time lapse where for them, you know, only a few hours has passed, but it's something like 20 years has passed in everyone else's time, and he watches a video, like he's getting video feeds from his kids, and he's getting video feeds from them now as adults. You know, this was just a couple hours ago for him, but that's relativity, and relativity is a cruel bitch if you're really dealing with it. And his daughter finally comes on and is talking to him. I'm gonna lose it just trying to say it. Anybody needs to watch it, that scene, and like props to Matthew McConaughey. He does a fantastic job acting with it. So does Jessica Chastain, who plays the grown-up Murph. But there is like, and it's such a small little pocket of like, hey, welcome to parenthood. You're just gonna look up one day, and this adulthood, I mean, it doesn't have to just be parenthood. It's like you're gonna look up one day and be like, oh my God, all of time passed in an instant, and I don't know where it went, and it all just like disappeared all of the sudden, and now like all the world has changed and moved in that sense.
Right. So I'll have to add Interstellar to my list and watch it and see if I can break the streak. But I mean, oddly enough, the closest thing that's ever gotten me to almost cry. Did you watch Futurama?
Yes. I watched Futurama.
The Jurassic Park episode where his dog just like he gets frozen and his dog keeps coming back to the pizza place.
Yes, just keeps coming back.
That almost got me. Like it really like that one is. I mean, I have a thing for dogs. Obviously, I have two of them, but I guess 2 years because the one just turned 2. So yeah, just over 2 years ago, we had to put our 14-year-old down, and that was that. I mean, that wasn't a movie. That was real life. That made me cry. Like
that's
for days.
Yeah.
That was probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do.
And that is that's the closest relation that you can give, like I would say, to like understanding with like, because it is, I mean, for people that have like, it becomes family, it's a family member at that point. So like passing of a family member in real world, that functions differently. So from that, a film perspective, I'm trying to think of something else. Old Yeller. What about Old Yeller?
I've never actually watched it, but
where the red fern grows.
I think I read the book when I was in middle school. So I probably saw, So I'm sure, like, if I was to watch some of those, like, watch maybe because when I bought the house that I currently live in, the guy was a bit of a hoarder, so he left a lot of stuff behind.
Mm-hmm.
So I now own Old Yeller because I found it in a stack of DVDs that I got to own.
If you watch that will probably get you.
Maybe
because
one day.
that's the him
Because
having to do the putting down for
right,
sure.
because the wife will cry at the drop of a hat.
That's me. That's me. It doesn't take
All
anything
right,
away.
all right.
Oh
So
wait, so hold on. I'll give you that. Oh man, hold on. I had one that I was gonna give you as a challenge. What was it? It was involving dogs and animals. Oh no. I was gonna say on the other human side, completely flipping, but has a similar context. First book that I ever remember crying in, and it's a story that to this day can get me. And if you haven't read and watched it, you should. Of Mice and Men.
okay, I've heard. I mean, that's one of those books that I hear about, and a lot of people talk about. And for some reason, I managed to escape being forced to read that one in high school. So
I read it voluntarily. I didn't know what I was getting into. We had like a slew of books that I could choose, and I chose that. And man, looking back on it, I'm like, dear God, that
yeah,
was such a brutal one.
yeah.
So give that one a try. Of Mice and
Okay,
Men could potentially get you.
all right. Last question, and then we'll wrap it up. If you could live in any fictional world,
Um, man, it's lame. Like I'm such a space person, so like anything space is gonna get huge points for me. The ability to travel in that context. Um, so I would have to like his lame as well, like Star Wars. The
mhm,
universe of Star Wars, like in the expanded universe of just like
yeah,
all of that it has to go out with.
well, that would
Um,
be a good one.
That's
Yeah,
yeah. Because I could say, like, I mean, like, there's other like more close to home aspects, like Star Trek, also, going into spacefaring and things like that. But like Star Wars in that level of just like this big, massive galactic this universe that you have to work with. That one would probably
yeah.
have to be.
Well, because like I immediately I'm like, well, Marvel, because that'd be so awesome, like to have Spider-Man and Iron Man. But then, like, if you're not one of them,
If I'm
it's
not one
it's
of them,
if you're not one of them, it's a terrible world because
yeah,
everything everything is constantly blowing up.
yeah, just like like every time I turn around, there's a traffic jam. Why is there a traffic jam? Oh, well, the bridge blew up. Some supervillains blowing up the bridge, and that's boring. That's not
So
fun.
some alien race just showed up that we didn't know about.
Yeah, we had no clue about, and we are just having to deal with it. Yeah, it was like Star Wars for me. Like I would say, like that's an established universe. You're there. It's a
Yeah,
big, massive, just like insane interconnectivity. And even if you were, a common peasant within that, it'd still be some really cool stuff that you would get to do.
all right.
Sure, cool. I would love to be like a fun person within that, but if not, at least I could have still a cool, basic everyday life.
Yeah. All right. Well, all right. So real quick, just so everybody knows where to find the book or get a hold of whatever it is you're promoting your company. Where are we looking?
Well, for me, you can find me on all social media platforms. It's Rise Publishing is the publishing company. It's Rise like to rise up publishing. So you can find that on all social media platforms as well as our website, risepublishing.org. You can search for me, Rion Duncan, Ryan spelled Rion, like a lion. So I always explain how it's spelled for folks.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Rion Duncan. And then, I mean, for the book, main thing is go check out the book. The preview is up on our website, on the risepublishing.org website. You can actually read the prologue and the first 4 chapters of the book.
Okay.
I think on the Amazon Kindle preview, you can read the first like 2.5 chapters. So if you want more, you can read the first like quarter of the book, almost like 10% of the book. You can read the first like 10% of the book. And if it's a book for you, if it's something that you like, keep reading it, buy it. And if not, then it's not a book for you, and that's perfectly fine.
All right. Well, so I don't really have a good way of normally I have some things that have built in that I can kind of figure out how to wrap this up, but I mean I guess if you aren't a good writer of Superman, just remember, stupid never walks alone.
Yes, yes, indeed. Thank you so much.